story of Loki, a story between drafts in the process of being rewritten. With Loki Season 2 wrapped up and the God of Stories finally making its debut into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I wanted to do a little deep dive into Loki as a character and the journey they've gone through in the comics. Loki as a character has been around in mythos for a long time. In this video, I'm going to be talking essentially about the rebirth of Loki and the comic runs I usually tell people about if they want to learn more about them. In my personal opinion, anyone who wants to get into comics nowadays, I usually just recommend choosing comics based on the character they want to start to know, as opposed to just being overwhelmed by the enormous amounts of comics. So this is more or less my little Loki cheat sheet and the current rundown of what they've been going through in the Marvel comics. Loki's first run in the Marvel comics was called Journey into Mystery, so it's only fitting that their rebirth is also titled the same. This comic run was from 2011 to 2013 and continued where the death of Loki left off in Siege. After facing the Void to try and help the Avengers defeat it, Loki died, but he laid schemes to break free from the destiny to always be the villain, becoming reborn as the kid version of himself, Kid Loki, who was not the original Loki because that one had died, giving this Loki a chance to be good. Loki has actually struck his name from the books of hell, meaning he can't truly die and would be reborn instead. Thor found this new child version of his brother in Paris who had no memory of his life as an adult. Thor explaining to him who he really was, and the child explained dreams he'd had where he was the villain. Thor offers his help and brings him back to Asgard. Back home, the other Asgardians still hated Loki, bullying him continuously. Odin belittles and yells at him, blaming him still for the fall of Asgard, and understandably, Loki runs away for a little while. Being attacked by Tony Stark, he has to be rescued and returned to Asgard by his brother. While Kid Loki stayed on Asgard, Odin continued to distrust him, though he still refused to kill Loki or send him back to Midgard because Thor would bring him right back, and because he still saw Loki as his son and wouldn't abandon any of his children. Which is really nice of him, isn't it? Odin, the #1 dad of the 9 realms. Despite how he was treated on Asgard upon his return, Loki did still try to help them and Thor. Facing an echo of his former self that revealed that the death and rebirth was all a part of his plan and that he would always be a villain, Loki turned the spirit of his past self into a magpie named Ekol. Loki spelled backwards. Eventually, Loki left Asgard. After saying goodbye to Thor and Hela, he and Ekol merged, and Kid Loki headed off to Midgard, where he joined the Young Avengers. This merge, or the death of Kid Loki, would often be referred to as the crime that will not be forgiven. While he may have been the outcast of the Young Avengers because Loki was still showing a lot of his deceitful traits from time to time, he really did care about the other teammates, especially helping Wiccan with his magic. However, he is still plagued with the guilt and the ghost of the child version of himself he killed. Once Wiccan helped Loki age up to the form you'll probably be most familiar with if you see him in the comics at all, the influence of Kid Loki wanes a little bit. After that, where does Loki end up but New York City? This is Agent of Asgard from 2014 to 2015, and my personal favorite comic run? It's this one. Here he's working under the All-Mothers to redeem himself from the crimes of his past. After each mission he does for them, he's resolved of one past crime. And in this comic run, he meets his best friend Verity Willis, a human with the powers of lie detection, and the perfect match for our god who struggles a little bit to tell the truth from time to time. It's more than a little bit. In this comic run, Loki is constantly running from the future threat that he will still become the evil trickster of their past. That the path they were on currently, working for the All-Mothers, would end up fruitless and would lead to the death of the future at King Loki's hands. After revealing his crime that will not be forgiven to Thor, he's resurrected and reinvented once more as the God of Stories, determined to finally break free of the chains of destiny and become the author of their own story. They're not super present during Secret Wars, minus like the One Vote Loki spin-off where they run for president. It's not a canon story technically, but it is a fun read, and it was super cool to see that variant in the first series of the show. Then we have Mighty Thor, the era where Loki really starts sinking their teeth into playing the villain again. Sort of. They're more of a double agent between Malekith's Stark Council and Asgard, and has a really big part in setting up for the War of the Realms, betraying Asgard by stabbing Frigga during her trial to keep Asgard from weakening and to keep her safe from Malekith. They sneak in despite Odin's headhunt for them to help heal Freya, which is arguably one of my favorite and the saddest Loki moments for me. It was never something they wanted to do and they regret it immediately, but they do it to keep their loved ones safe. Ultimately, they just keep making really awful choices, but like it's just for the people that they care about. He eventually returns to live in Jotunheim and works with his father Laufey, working to prove himself to Laufey so that maybe he could be proud of him despite not meeting any of the standards Laufey has for Jotuns. There's a break they take in all of this where they actually become Sorcerer Supreme, showing up at the Tournament of Sorcerers that Steven is trying to win because winning means becoming Sorcerer Supreme. Loki hilariously wins despite actually doing nothing other than like leaning against a wall and listening to music. So not only was he not competing, he was never actually invited in the first place. The Vishanti actually accepted except Loki, saying that they don't want a mortal to be Sorcerer Supreme anymore. So understandably, Steven is upset. Loki moves into the Sanctum Sanctorum and gets to work, despite everybody thinking that he's just up to no good. Steven starts to hatch a plan to take back his title and to keep Loki from finding the Exile of Sing Soon, a spell that would give its caster all of the world's magic, which he hides inside of his friend and apprentice Zelma Stanton, going to such an extreme length to stop him, all while Loki seems to genuinely be trying to do good as the Sorcerer Supreme. Steven releases the Sentry and steals magic from Yggdrasil. Loki also reaches into Zelma's soul while fighting the Void, if you remember that's the creature that had previously killed him, and extracts the Exile of Sing Soon, taking control of Earth's magic so he could separate Steven from the Void that possessed him, which is like the coolest thing that Loki's ever done in the comics, and I wish we had more of that magic in the MCU, personally. When he does this, however, Zelma does become privy to all of his secrets, the biggest one being that the Tournament of Sorcerers was actually a lie, and he was never actually appointed by the Vishanti to be the Sorcerer Supreme. It was all an illusion. So why did he do it? Loki claims it's to make Steven stronger for the events in the foreseeable future. The War of the Realms, Hell on Earth, Damnation, the Gathering of the Infinity Stones, and the Final Host. Zelma and Steven don't believe him, and Loki returns the title and the cloak to Steven. But one of the coolest things is that you do find out through the rest of the comics coming up that Loki was right, but it's mostly because they're at the forefront of a lot of these events. Infinity Wars shows Loki's journey in gathering the Infinity Stones with a ragtag team of other Marvel characters, working alongside Gamora, Scott Lang, Hulk, Emma Frost, Kang the Conqueror, and Miss Marvel. The latter two were actually combined as one person for a little bit. Loki betrays them once all the stones are gathered and uses them to enter another universe to confront the Celestials, which is another amazing comic panel where Loki falls backwards preaching about how if they don't see him again, he's found something better, and it's one of my absolute faves. Asking the Celestials to see his future, he starts laughing in defeat, mentioning that he knows when he's beat, and he returns back to the team he betrayed, handing back the stones to the group and going to help save the main universe and the Warp World universe from collapsing. Around the same time, this is where comics get a little bit wibbly wobbly. We had Thor 2018 and some other ones going on at the same time, but this one starts off really strong. Loki makes a portal for Thor so he can visit Hell so he can join the war against Cinder, Surtur's daughter. Thor taking Loki with him, they meet their brother Balder, who's been leading the battle with Scourge the Executioner, who you guys might recognize from Thor Ragnarok. To stop a fight with Hela, who had come to reclaim her throne, Loki suggests that Hela and Balder should marry and co-rule over Hel, which the two reluctantly agree to. Thor admits to Loki during the ceremony, which is a mess, by the way. Thanos ends up crashing and breaking up with Hela, and she ends up marrying Karnilla, the Norn Queen, instead of Balder. Asgardians are a mess. Anyway, during the ceremony, Thor admits that he thinks that it would take strength from the Valkyrie themselves to stop Cinder. And you have to go to Valhalla to meet the Valkyrie, but you have to be dead to go to Valhalla to meet the Valkyrie. So he suggests that Loki should kill him, and Loki actually says no. Which one leads to the most heart-wrenching Loki line ever, where he ends up saying something along the lines of I know I would never see the gates of Valhalla, but he suggests that Loki should kill him, and Loki refuses at first. Of course he would. It looked really bad on him. But when Thor tells Loki he still loves him, Loki does kill him, and Thor gets to go to Valhalla and meet with the Valkyrie. After the fight with Cinder, we have War of the Realms, the big attack on Midgard where Loki fights alongside his father, until he doesn't. Deciding that he's had enough of Loki, Laufey pulls a Kronos and eats him alive on national television, where his friends from the Young Avengers and family watch it happen. Daredevil, now the god without fear, who has control of the Bifrost, tosses his sword inside of Laufey's mouth, and Loki uses it to carve his way out from the inside, partially digested and looking really rough for wear, killing Laufey and delivering the coolest line I think he has ever said, which is, "What's the matter, father? Was it something you ate?" From here on out, the God of Stories is declared the King of Jotunheim, ruling the Frost Giants and helping Thor with Asgard as a neighboring king, while also running off from time to time to do his own thing. Like finding the missing pieces of a ship the past version of themselves had made from the fingernails of the dead, which is, gross, by the way, that caused problems all over the universe. Loki doesn't stay king for long, however, recently denouncing the title and going on their own journey, which recently includes wielding the power of Thor alongside his brother. The tale of Loki is a little bit confusing, but I hope this helped sum it up just a little bit. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to stay geeky, and I will see you guys next time.